I am here with one of my dear soul brothers, Don Jose Ruiz, which I'm so grateful, my brother, that you came to Los Angeles, that you're here. And I want to preface by saying that Jose has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And it's just been amazing to see how we've both grown throughout our lives, the paths we've taken. And I continue to always learn so much from you, especially about being the love of our lives. And so I think one of the most important things that I've learned from you is that, about love, right? That it's not just the love that we give others, but it's about really learning to be the love of our own lives. So I'd love to just dive right into the meat of what makes our souls happy, what makes our souls sing, and talk about love.
Yes, I love what you say that, and it's always a pleasure to be with you, hermana, and especially in Los Angeles, where we met. But about love, it's like the light. The sun just shines, the moon just shines, the stars just shine, and this is exactly what love is. It's about us humans shining, the animals shining, the plants shining, and the only thing that exists, like this is the ugliness of life, is the human mind that judges. But when you don't judge yourself anymore, you don't judge others because you just see that everything is just life. Everything has the right to make its own choices. Some people can say with judgment, this is a mistake. But even in the negative part, the positive sees the negative. And the negative begins to see the positive, and it begins to transform little by little. Because I used to be negative because I got domesticated with life, because I didn't know what love was. I thought that love was what they told me, what I saw on television, what I saw in films, how I saw couples, and I wanted to fit in. And in that moment, I wasn't authentic anymore. I wanted to fit into the dream of the planet's point of view. And this is the thing about the world. Everyone has a point of view, and everybody thinks they're right. And it's not about right or wrong. It's about shining and, being kind. So when we begin feeling our own kindness, it's because love has come back to us. And when we know that we never left home, it's because we never left love. We just pretended not to be love anymore and control love. But you can't control the light sun. No matter how much we try to control the light sun, we will only control it in this planet. But in the universe, it's still shining. So it's just in our little heads. Mm-hmm. So this is how humanity lives. So when it comes a moment in our life when we know that we just have a little temporary place here, like I always say, I'm not a permanent citizen. I'm a temporary citizen of the world. And having this awareness, well, there's nothing else to do than shine. Mm-hmm. And shining is love.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned the dream of the planet. And for people who don't understand what the dream of the planet means, and you and your father and your brother and your whole family are very spiritual people. You've been teaching the Toltec teachings for many, many years. And I think people get sometimes a little bit intimidated. They think, well, I don't understand this spirituality. It seems so mystical. But I think you really have found a way to apply this to day-to-day life and teach that spirituality doesn't have to be so mystical. It's actually very practical. And so talk a little bit about what is the dream of the planet and how can that affect us if we don't start working on creating our own belief systems and get undomesticated, and how this ties together?
Well, this is a beautiful and powerful question because we live in the dream of the planet. It's a dream of collectiveness of human mind. It's nothing to do with the animals or nature. Everything does what it does organically. We humans try to control and make sense of what it is, that we put the word into a pedestal. That's why the first agreement, not being impeccable with the word, is very important, because you can see life, everybody's making with the word stories and they believe it. And from this point on, it's a collective of consciousness of people who have found the truth and live in lies and describe the truth to the lie. And little by little, the humanity begins to evolve, knowing that, but they're still attached to the word and how things are supposed to be. So yes, there's a sleeping dream out there, but it's powerful. And when we die, this dream is going to still be here. So you can see how one can clean up a garden, but if the gardener dies, the nature's going to take over it, the bugs are going to take over it. So when we have this awareness that we're dreaming in the dream of the planet, we can change our own point of view of our own dream and not believe the lies outside. So we begin being skeptical to the outside dream, and this is come with respect. And one of the powerful things about having awareness is traveling the world. And you don't have to do it physically. You can read, you can study the cultures, you can study different belief systems. And in religions, they all believe a different point of view to get to the truth in their own way. But the truth is always going to be where God shines its light, or Divine Mother shines her light. And when we begin seeing what words mean to the people who are wanting transformation and change, they have to put their faith somewhere. But that point of view of faith activates their inner intent that they begin waking up. Like my father says in the Four Agreements, imagine you're the only one sober where everybody's completely drunk. And this is the dream of the planet. Everybody is drunk with their belief system, that in the belief system, something got created that was the addiction of suffering. And this is when one wakes up to look for spirituality. And some don't want to see themselves clearly. They want to blame other people. And they create spirituality as a fantasy. And when we create spirituality as a fantasy, we lose the people who really want to change, because that's running away. That's numbing. That's not really dealing with the problems. So spirituality is really living in your world, in your way that you use your words, and not lying to yourself. So the light is the most honest thing that can light up a darkened room. And sometimes our belief systems are very dark, because, that's why we get domesticated, the wounds. And it's when we begin to search, there has to be more than that than this. So when we wake up, we're not waking up humanity. And here's the thing with personal importance and ego. When one wakes up in spirituality, they think that they have to tell all the world how to live, but it has nothing to do with the world, because they are making a justification why not to work with themselves. But the moment that you begin working with yourself and you respect the dream of the planet, you respect the world. It's like going to a museum. There's all these different paintings, and everybody in the museum who did a painting put a collectedness, and they might be alive or not be alive. But what will happen if somebody comes and tries to change all those paintings? This is wrong, this is wrong, this is supposed to be this way. Well, it's not their art. And then another thing about the superstition of spirituality is about thinking that you're the incarnation of somebody else. And it's so disrespectful to pretend to be somebody else. And, the person who died doesn't care. It's disrespectful for the person who's alive, that they're never going to be their authentic self because they want to take credit for somebody else. And in spirituality, people are always taking credit for somebody else's work. They just change a little words here and there. But honestly, nothing belongs to us. We make art for what we see in the dream of the planet, in the collectedness of humanity. Just like AI. AI needs the artist, the human. Just like my favorite artist, Boom Bori, says, without the creative minds and without the history of humanity, there will be no AI. So AI is a perfect resemblance of the language that the dream of the planet is spoken of. So when we wake up, having the awareness that we are temporary citizens of this world, we know that we are light beings. There's no doubt about that, because we're stardust. And with this, I believe in my own heart, or I imagine for me to make sense of this life, that this is when we are visitors and our life is a vacation. And what happens when you go on vacation to a different country? They have different rules that the country that you come from. And you have to respect the ways of life. And this is exactly what I feel when we are in the dream of the planet.
I couldn't agree more. And I'd love to take a deeper dive into this, because I think you're so right. I think some people get confused with spirituality and they think, oh, I'm going to transcend everything here. And they do kind of try to ignore the dream of the planet, or how the world works, or what's happening around them. And then maybe they start to do, like you're saying, like kind of steal, right, from other people versus being authentic. And I think in recent years, a lot of people are trying to search for that authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some ways that people can realize what is it to be authentic, and how do they find their own authenticity in a world now, especially, that's bombarding you constantly with information, domesticating you, as you say, telling you who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to say, how you're supposed to behave. How do you find that middle ground to be authentic?
Well, it's very simple. Not to need or beg for the validation of others. When you have your own validation, people may have their opinions about you and you know they're not truth. You don't have to defend yourself with the lies. It's the ego who does that. They're going to believe whatever they're going to believe. But when you validate yourself, it's because you witness yourself doing a hard job, doing the work. And what work is it for, what we're doing? To leave a nightmare behind, to leave a corrupt, suffering world behind, that we used to take personal everything, that's happening in the world and, feel guilty about that when we didn't even do it. And one of the beautiful things about not needing the need of validation of somebody else, you begin respecting your own art. This is what helps you and serves you. So I love to be a clean mirror. It's something that I really work in my life, not knowing I was working in it. But when I begin forgiving myself, forgiving all the people who hurt me and forgiving myself for hurting people, I woke up and I didn't need the forgiveness of the people that I hurt. I didn't have to tell them that I change. I just begin changing and not repeating those things that I did to the people in the past, to the people that I know now, and to the people that I will know tomorrow. No one needs to know what I'm doing, and I don't need to put it on social media to say I change and get all these likes or validations from other people to know that I'm right. Because in today's age, there are amazing artists, amazing performers putting their art into social media, and they judge themselves. Why? Because they don't have the validation or the likes that other people have. And in little by little, they get lost wanting those likes, wanting to fit in, changing their whole art so they can be with the modern times. But in that time, they begin losing themselves or what makes them happy. If we only have 20 years left to live, are we going to live those 20 years to make somebody happy, to fit, to be accepted in a reality of someone else's, to be validated? And we'll sell our soul for that? Because it happens, because when the moment we do that, we lose inspiration. And this is what Toltec, for me, it means the artist. Because we find our own art or what makes us happy, or what makes us believe, what makes us happy. Like someone said to me, Jose, you're Toltec. Why are you so fascinated with the Hindu tradition? It's because it changed my life when I was in my darkest space. And later, when I return back to say thank you, I know that it's just a different way of expressing the truth of the life force, of the sun, of love. It's just another different way of artistically. So when I went to different cultures and see the same, messages in different way of art, I felt that what a gift we all have. We all feel the love. We all feel the spiritual essence, the soul. Now, as an artist, as a Toltec, how are we going to describe it? And when we describe it, it's not for anybody else, it's for ourselves. To serenade ourselves with our own art, to be our own guide. The worst thing that we can do is to disrespect these artists, to go into the war of gods, which is the war of beliefs, which is now human and human debating for something to be proven who is right and who is wrong. And in that moment, we're exposing, let's say we love Divine Mother, or we love Baba, or we love Christ, or we love whoever, that we have to debate somebody who's going to be right Buddha or Jesus. It's ridiculous. This is when people are really not going for the teachings to change their life. They're going for sanctuary to escape. And that's why there's so many charlatans in spirituality. There's so many fanatics, because even today's age, there's science and medicine that study how the brain works and why people have hallucinatics, visions, because the brain operates very magically. Even some neurologists don't understand the miracles that happen with the brain and the visions, because there's something else. And I learned this from my uncle Carlos. He's a neurologist, and he said to me one time that there's still some force that we don't understand, like in a state of meditation, how energy comes in and we get all these messages, or how it operates, but every part of the brain has its own purpose. And the Toltec knew this from a way of, we are a dreaming mind. And when we are a dreaming mind, we live in a house. And our house is what the planet Earth gives to us. And it's the earth itself. This body is not ours. You know, we call it whatever we call it, but at the end of the day, after all the names we give it of the function that it does, we're just life. So imagine having that awareness of consciousness, of being that light force, having a consciousness and just roaming in life. You can talk to anybody. You can talk to anybody and transmit what you really are. And that's why I call myself a clean mirror that lives in the dream of the planet on vacation. Because one day I'm going to go back, pack my energy and go, but this body will go back to mother. And in the old traditions, this physical body, they're not used to be in boxes. They weren't burned. Nowadays, they burn it because they want to charge rent after we die.
Right.
But honestly, this body is meant to feel the organism, the worms, the earth. It's like a soil to make the soil ground bigger, fertilizer to make the soil ground bigger, because we're done with it. And new people are going to be born, and the life will come back again. And here's the other thing that I feel in my heart, that I know in my heart for me to be true, is that there is just one soul, is one complete soul. There's not billions of souls of dreaming minds. And this is where we become attached, that we want to live forever, that we want to have this mind to live forever, but it serves its purpose as a collectiveness to create in this dream of the planet whatever we're supposed to be. The fear of dying is what created religions and corrupted religions, and the negative people use it to suppress us. The fear of dying is what creates inorganic things. So when we begin being nature, we know that everything is eternal. We're just passing one by one. So in some traditions, they call, like one of my favorite one in Hindu, is how Shiva turned into Vishnu, turned into Krishna, but they're all different beings, but it's the same light. And they are not different than all the rest of the humans, because it's the same soul. The difference it is, one is more aware of it than others.
Like kind of like an evolution of consciousness in the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm getting from that, right?
Yes, the different dreams of planet Earth in all of us, because we're all planet Earth. We're all part of her, but we're all different dreams of her.
I love this dream that we're having right now and this beautiful dance. You talk about this temple, this body that is part of the earth, and how you've talked about one day you realized, like, this body's been good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you were very grateful for the body, and you were like, oh my gosh, you've been serving me my whole life. And one day you decided, so since you've been so good to me, now maybe I'm going to become friends with my mind. So talk a little bit about that beautiful connection for because I know this will help people also make that connection and understand how sacred it is that we get to live in this beautiful body, and how we can work with our minds to actually take really good care of ourselves.
Yes, when I was little, I was just a little open soul. I was just happy all the time, even though I did my little tantrums with crying, but I was a happy little sunshine walking everywhere. And then one day I went to this ceremony with other people, like a shamanic ceremony, and they were passing a feather with a stick wrapped in red cloth. And the only one who can speak was the one holding it. So they passed it all around, and everybody was talking about suffering. And I was the only child there. Everybody was an adult. So when it got to my hands, I didn't have anything to tell. But in that young mind, I had the thought that in order to become an adult, you have to have suffering in your life. You have to have drama in your life. So what did I do? I went look for it. I went to look for pain. And that pain, I really knew it when I, had a crush on this girl. And I went to tell her if she wanted to be my girlfriend. And she said no. And in that moment, I felt like a little pain. Oh, here's something I can grab into. And back then, I didn't know it. Now I can see it because I'm out of that dream. But in back then, I began my journey to use love to hurt myself. And I didn't know when every time I had a relationship, I sabotaged it so I can hurt myself. And then later become substance and drugs. I became addicted to crystal meth at the age of 15. And it got me a hold for, I was like 5 years of it. In those 5 years of it, many things happened. I don't want to go into that. But when I was done living that way, is when I went with my father and I wanted to transform my dream. And I got the opportunity to go to India in those days. And that's when I begin seeing, people making lines to see Baba. And I see Baba inside of me. And I begin saying, I'm treating Baba horribly. But then I got another heartbreak and I begin doing it again. And even though I got the light, I begin doing it again. Anyways, it came a moment of my life where I knew that I had to unlearn, that I was so attached to pain, that I needed to have pain to process in ceremonies. I needed to have pain to process. I couldn't just be happy. I needed to process something. And in one point, I almost took my own life away because I was in a relationship where it was so abusive, and I was mad at God. So when I survived that moment and I woke up and I wasn't dead, because there was a shit in my head. They were operating on me, and I thought I died. And when my uncle took it away, he was operating on me, and I saw him, but I thought I was really dead. But now I had to be awake to see what I have done to my physical body. Well, anyways, once I got that, I got better. I looked into the mirror, and it also happened when I went blind and got my eyesight back because of the consequences of inhaling, snorting. I damaged my nerve system. But when I got better, I look into the mirror and I look at it like the most loyal being. This little kid that grew up protecting me, guiding me, taking all the abuse. I know that this person was so loyal to me that he even followed me to dream of hell. So that is when I woke up in the Toltec tradition, knowing that there's nothing to learn but unlearn how I treat this being that's loyal to me. And that's when I begin serving the love of my life, begin unlearning because I wanted to be loyal to that being that is myself, like my physical body is loyal to my mind. And then it's when I woke up and I couldn't go back to sleep. So in many things I was clueless, but when I become aware of it, I couldn't go against myself anymore. So, things happen, things happen. I left that abusive relationship. I began using food to hurt myself. I began using alcohol to hurt myself. I didn't use meth anymore, but I began using many things. And it was up to my last marriage that I was married like 12 or 13 years that, when she left, I had a little temptation to hurt myself with, but I didn't want to put alcohol in my body. I didn't want to put poison. And I felt like an epiphany. Oh my God. Since I was a little kid, I had that program that I didn't know about. And I used love against myself, but this time I didn't fall off love. I rose in love. And then I know that I'm the love of my life because many people don't know how to love. They don't even know what love is. They project on somebody and they're afraid, searching for the unknown. But when you're good with yourself, you know that you have a resurrection. And the resurrection is the appreciation of being alive. Now I can say truly I'm one with Divine Mother. Every moment is so special that I could see, that I could speak to you, that you and I have gone through so many journeys since we were kids. And here we are now, being in our adulthood and, enjoying every moment, doing the best thing to expand consciousness. And when we expand consciousness, it comes back to us because now we're in gratitude serving. And there's nothing more than that for me to satisfy my soul.
Beautiful. Ah, so beautiful. I love everything you say. I always have, and I I still do. So let's talk more about this becoming the love of your life. And what are simple things that people can start with to, undo that domestication, to realize that no, you don't have to grab onto something in life to suffer. You don't have to keep creating circumstances to suffer just because all of your ancestors did and all of the society did. And you know people have sayings like, oh, everyone has their cross to carry, or nothing can be perfect, or you hear these things in the world, right? People say things like this. And how can someone start, like, what would be one thing they can start with to start just turning that dial a little bit, maybe making a switch from believing that they have to suffer to, wait a minute, what if I see myself like Jose and realize that I've been with myself my whole life and so loyal, and decide, oh, I'm really going to make you happy now.
Well, it's important to realize that even our suffering is perfect because it's the part of darkness that teaches us how to find our own light. So anything that happened was supposed to happen because it did happen. And it motivates us to ask the question, there's more than life than this. And there's something very powerful that my teachers, Doña Barbara and my father, Don Miguel, teach me. In saying, first, to know what love is, you have to know what love is not. So anything that uninspires you, that makes you feel down, is not for you. And at one point we carried a cross because we were addicted to suffering. When you're the one that fix anymore, you said, I'm done. I did it all my life. Now I'm going to go cold turkey and do the effort. And this is truly being a warrior. Overcoming your own temptations, overcoming your own uncomfortableness, unlearning, detoxing, not from chemicals, but from a way of thinking that it comes throughout emotions. And the emotions is always guilt and shame to punish ourselves. But the body has taken enough when you have this awareness. But you have to live in truth and honest that be responsible. Yes, I did that. I did that, but I don't want to do it anymore. Like I said earlier, I did it, to my ex-wife because in a relationship, I learned how to be this. In my first marriage, I attracted somebody who was also addicted to suffering. So we both were sharing not love. We're sharing conditional love, the way that imposing one way or the other. And of course, it was meant to explode and wanted to be perfect for the outside dream, or I wanted to make it work, but it wasn't for me. But I thought that that's what I had to do. Nowadays, I can identify what dream is not for me, even though I feel it. I have like this expectation to be in it, and something happens that I had the awareness, oh, this dream is not for me. I feel disappointed. I feel a little heartbreaking, but that's just what life it is. When you begin noticing that this life is not for you anymore. And that moment, then you have to let it go because we begin being attached to the lies. And we are trained to make the lie the truth. So in little by little, it's about having the awareness that we have to not support a dream that's going to go against ourselves anymore, even though how much it hurts. When my father said to me, the moment that I divorced your mom, that we both got divorced, I had two choices: to pretend to be happy with her, and you see that, and you gonna grow up in a home where she and I are fighting, or I had to just walk away and leave that marriage, so you can see in the future having a household where there is not that. When you can see me happy and shining, because if he didn't do that, he will never wrote books. He will never become the man he became. So he had to follow his own heart, because he said to me, children learn not what we say to them. They learn what we do. So now let's see this point of view that we are our own children and we are what we do. The moment we stop putting attention to a new dream, the new dream will rise. But if we continue putting the attention to the old dream of suffering, this is what I feel guilt and shame, we will never, get out of that nightmare. So it comes a really a responsible point of view of our own art and what we want and don't want anymore. So one of the things, simple things that I ask myself, I have to do is just observe myself. And I know what makes Jose unhappy, and I know what makes Jose happy. And how do I know this? Is because I am Jose. Like everybody is everybody. So if you're listening right now, anybody, you know what makes you happy, and you know what makes you unhappy. You don't have to pretend anymore. And when you stop following what makes you happy, all those lies, all the have to, all the sacrifices that no one's asking you to do will dissolve. And we leave away, we walk away from an island of safety, a pain that we're used to, because we're afraid of the unknown. What am I without my pain? What am I with my excuses? Well, the power of honesty, you know, it's so powerful. That's why anybody who knows me, that that's close to me, they know that I don't like to lie. That I always say the truth. They said, you don't have to be that honest. Well, it's not for them, it's for me. I want my consciousness clean. Mm. And Mother Isis said it so beautifully. In order to enter heaven, your heart must be light as a feather. If your heart is not light as a feather, you may never enter heaven. And it's not about a feather or the heart. It's about a clear consciousness. And when you have that clear consciousness, you can wake up when everybody's completely drunk. So you begin talking in levels of awareness. Because, I have one of my good friends, brother Luis. His father gave me a great teaching. He one day brought two guitars and said to Teotihuacan, and said, like, hey, let's go jam. And I go, oh, I cannot play guitar. I don't know how to play. Okay. And then the last day, the journey was over. He left his guitar on the kitchen restaurant, and I picked it up and I began to jam. And he walked in, and Don Alberto walked in, and he said, Jose, you lied to me. And I said, I didn't lie. You told me that you couldn't play, and you're playing. And I said, well, I see you on a pedestal. You're awesome. I don't play. He says, Jose, if you know how to play three chords, I will play three chords with you. So when we have awareness, we speak to whoever we see like that. And that was a great teaching for me, because after that, I enrolled myself to guitar class, to bass class, to every class that I could, because I was afraid to do what I love to do. After battling so many dragons, I was afraid of that little thing, because that's what I used to judge myself. But now I do what makes me happy. And nowadays, I'm in a band with his son and Aaron and Carla and Ahmed, and we have Toltec visions. But if I never would accept it, what made me happy, this dream would never be possible to experience before I die.
That's amazing, because I see two really powerful stories there. Yours of really walking through your fear and realizing I'm going to do what makes me happy, even if I'm afraid, even if I know those old voices were around, and the beauty of another human having this beautiful compassion and kindness and encouragement to say something really sweet and wonderful to you and encouraging, because I think that's where, when we have those beautiful open hearts, we're so generous and we're so kind to others and able to not compete and able to invite others to do what they love. And I feel like Don Alberto, right? He kind of was that generous soul at that moment. Yes. That said something so kind to you, and it reminded you that where you were acting from, right? From a fear place versus like, wait a minute, I do love this. Yeah. Let me just go and do that. That's such a beautiful example. On your journey, your continuous journey of really unfolding more and more, becoming the love of your life, being kind to yourself, and really speaking the truth. Tell me more about that part of speaking the truth. How do we speak the truth, our truth, and still be kind and compassionate in this world?
Well, this is very powerful, because that path has nothing to do with anyone in the world. It's only for us to know. It's like, I see sometimes in the social media people going to ceremonies and temples and filming themselves. They're not doing it for them. They're doing it for the world to see. When you do a ceremony, a prayer, you do it for yourself. And you use anything that inspires you. It could be Quetzalcoatl, it could be Baba, it could be, any other religious figure and idol. But that activates something that you're praying to for asking for power. But it's a mirror and you're asking for power. In that moment, that becomes an act of power that you're doing. And it's no one else's in the world. But once you do it, you reinforce yourself. And it's like a flower, a plant getting all these seeds. And now what are you going to do with those seeds? Well, those seeds are your presence. You go out into this world. You're changing it little by little, not by speaking your words or your belief system. It's your presence reminding others of their presence. And it's contagious. One of my favorite things I love to do is, yes, I wake up, I drink my coffee with my little puppy. Then I do a little prayer. While I'm drinking coffee, I put the mantra in YouTube, and me and Yogi just like hang out. And then when it's time to go work out, I go work out. And then I come back taking for a little walk. And then I do my rounds. I go to the smoothie place, to the coffee place. I walk in the park. I do chores. But everywhere I go, people remember us and say, you bring light, you bring all this, it's not that I have this special energy or this special magic. I'm just a good person sharing this light, these seeds, this presence. And there's nothing else to do it. And then all of a sudden, we can be in an airplane. We can be in a rock concert. We can be walking and somebody's going to approach us and we're going to give them wisdom. Because I believe for me, my own religious spiritual path, Divine Mother always gives me a mission that I don't even have to know, that I will know in the moment. And someone comes to me and asks me something and I begin talking. And then they ask me, what do you do? Well, I'm a book author. And little times, they know that work. Like one of my favorite parts, sister, is when I was in Machu Picchu. Next to Machu Picchu, there's Machu Picchu, the big mountain. So it's like a 3-hour hike. And I did it. And I was sitting there just enjoying the view. And there was this other gentleman next to me, and we began talking for half an hour. He was processing something, and I was a mirror. We began talking. He gave me something that I needed to hear as well. And then, we bowed and we said goodbye. And then one of the participants who was in the power journey that I was leading that moment in Peru, and began talking to that person. And when they were done talking, the gentleman that I was talking to, pulled up the book that he was reading. And what book was he reading? The Fifth Agreement. And the other person said to him, you know who you were talking to here? The co-author of this book. And the other person got chills. And I didn't know the story until the other person told me that story. But this is how the energy works.
Absolutely. Wow. That's a beautiful story.
And it's about confirmations because, when one begins working on themselves, we attract one another. We're about to meet. And it's an affirmation of divine that we're in the right path. But I always say we all work for the same boss. And that moment, souls begin waking up, remembering what they are. And everyone is the same. But this is the beautiful thing about being authentic. It's the gift to the world. And that's how we, co-live with the world.
And the more you are authentic, right? And the more you serve, the more you're able to serve.
Yes.
Right?
And one is not even thinking about serving. It's just doing. It's just a lifestyle. One's not preparing. One is just being present and show me. And my father, our teacher, he just grabs us and go on stage and speak. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I was, thinking of what to say, he never put me to speak. And then when I, wasn't prepared, then he put me to speak. But he was teaching me to overcome my nervousness, my fears, and be present. That, one of the things that I used to fear was going through customs. And, and then I just began practicing. And then, I got over my uncomfortableness because I always went backstage. That's why I call secondary inspection. I always was there for half an hour to 2 hours or whatever. Anyways, I began teaching there. I began sharing with other people there. And even one time, an agent, I was crossing and, going to India. We went to India many times together. But the moment that they say, if you meditate for all these hours, Krishna will appear, it never appeared to me in my room. But he appeared to me in customs. I was crossing customs and they have a little record and it popped up. But before that record popped up, he asked me, what did I do? What was I doing in Mexico? Well, I was leading a journey in the Teotihuacan. What are you doing? I'm an author. And I pull up the fifth agreement and it says, I know this book. And then he looked at the computer, says, back then you didn't know what you were doing, but now you do. And he went around and put his gloves on, but he gave me a hug. And for me, that was Krishna because I overcame a little fear and comfortable that I had, believing that past of me is dead. That, even though I walk forward, that memory is still there and it's not going to go anywhere. But I co-live with that memory now. And I'm being honest in that after that, he said, now we have to go check your back because they're watching in the cameras. But anyways, when we begin overcoming our fears, we're living. We're not numbing. We're feeling something. And this is when we walk on fire. Forget walking on charcoals and doing a ceremony for half an hour and burning our feet. And, walking on fire is really walking through our nervousness and not forgetting to breathe. Walking through the uncomfortable things of life like yoga. Like Ramakrishna once told me, in India, in this place, before you get on the mat floor to do poses, you study for 3 months with yourself because it's a disrespectful thing to bring your problem to the yoga mat. When you're in the yoga mat, you're one with God. And you have to bring the offerings of presence, of silence, or ideas that you know that you want to do so you can transmit, not have that yoga moment be, bring your problems there. And I remember being with my dad and I asked him, what should I do? What should I do? Should I do? And he said to me one time, aren't you tired of asking me what should I do? I go, no, why? Because you don't do.
He wanted you to look at yourself and do what was in your heart to do and follow where your heart was taking you.
Yes, he wanted to trust myself,
Absolutely.
to learn to trust because one day he's not going to be here. He was giving me all the tools. Mm-hmm. So I use him as a secondary character in my mind as I do with all the other teachers.
That's so beautiful.
And that's why I like the name Jose. Like I said the other day, last week, one of the things that I love the name Jose, and that's because I'm just non-binary and that's my new name. No, it's not about that. It's about my Mama Gaia, or our teacher too. Yeah. She gave me that name. She used to call me Jose. And now when I hear Jose, I hear her calling. So she's always with me because she's a representation of Divine Mother for me. As you are, and all my sisters are, that I'm now in the two-spirit path that in the Hindi tradition, they call it Shiva Shakti, where you make the perfect equilibrium with both male and female, knowing that both of them work together to create life, but we are just life itself. So in that moment, one of the things that I used to fear, like playing music, was expressing my beauty. And that's when I begin, feminizing myself. I begin, using makeup and just feeling beauty without judging myself. And you know what the beautiful thing was? I found my friends, like my bandmates, my friends. I started putting on that they never said a thing, because they supported me no matter how I looked. They loved me.
And because you love yourself.
Exactly.
Yes. And if you feel like doing whatever you want to do on a given day, you're exploring without the fear of being judged because now you want to wear makeup or now you want to use a name that is really powerful and meaningful to you because it reminds you of the Divine Mother calling you, Jose. And I think that that's such a beautiful example of living as the love of your life and living and creating the dream that you want, right, on this planet, and not respecting, but not having to buy into the entire dream of what the planet creates for you.
Yes.
Which is absolutely beautiful. And so I want to dive a little bit more into the Divine Mother. And I love that you were talking about how you decided now that you're non-binary, right? And, that is something that people get really confused about. And I love to talk about the dance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and how, our society for a period of time, it only honored the masculine. And then we had this shift, right, where we really started to embrace the divine feminine. But it seems to me, from what I've seen, there was kind of like this little war happening, that it was like, oh no, the divine feminine, oh no, the divine masculine. And where do we find that dance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine? And how can people come to terms with that there's room for all of it to dance together?
Well, the beautiful thing is that, it's about making a balance of love and respect and harmony. We all have our purpose. And the word non-binary, I just know it because my ex-wife is a psychologist, and she named it. In today's age, they call it that. But before that, it could be androgynous. It could be, there have so many names of it. But to really see the divine mother is like in the Toltec tradition, in the Mexica world, when it was in the top of this power, is because women were ruling it. They were the governors. Why? It's because the male honored the portal of the infinite. Without divine mother, the souls couldn't come in. So in honoring that, we honor life. It was in the dream of machismo when he began being with greed, with hatred, with resentment, with envy, that he wanted to control. But you cannot control life. That he wanted to control life. So he began doing what? Suppressing women. And in the suppression of women, they suppress little boys. And they begin training little boys the dream of machismo, the dream of cruelty, the dream that, that everything doesn't have feelings. And one begin being numb to that. And it's in generations, even today's generation, some cultures may honor divine mother, but they treat the women horribly. They still continue that, suppression. But it comes a moment when divine feminine find their power, and they speak to one another and says nothing is going to suppress us anymore. My grandmother was a big advocate for that. In the 1940s, she left her abusive husband, who
Which
was
grandmother?
Mother Sarita,
Mama Sarita. Okay.
my father's mother. She was like a nahual of our tradition. So she asked my great grandfather, is there more than life than this? And grandfather smiled, of course. And then when she got the response, she left her husband and took her like 5 kids at the time or something like that. In the 40s was unheard of. But she began working so strong, and she's the one who opened the doors for my father to have a plate so he can step in and make this happen. And the 4 agreements and the teachings, he got that to my father. Anyways, in the time when my grandmother passed away, like 3 months beforehand, she spoke to me and said, I'm so happy for your generation, because your generation is going to see the return of divine mother. And you're not going to see her like in the blue robes or in the religious attire. You're going to see the rise of feminism. Even males will have the feminine power in them. They will find the perfect equilibrium with everything. So now you can see why the world is how it is right now at this moment. Machismo is afraid because the divine feminine is strong everywhere. You can see the LGBTQ movement so strong, just loving, being open and supportive to one another. You can see other cultures, living the dream of the suppression religion. You can see, governors, like in Mexico, there's our first woman president, and, the leaders here that are happening, it's rising. And the machismo is afraid because it's starting to lose its power. So what happens when they start to lose their power? They send all their armies to go and conquer everything. And right now we're in a stage of transformation. Some people may see that it's the end, but no, it's the real beginning of it. Because now we got the attention of machismo. Now we know that dream, it's a lie. Now the little ones can see that. So in order to be like Mama Gaya's last teaching was to love all her children, no matter who it is, to love them like they were their own children. And And this inspires me to love everybody like their own brother and sister, even if they're possessed with hate, with racism, with anger. They learned it somewhere as a little kid, and they got domesticated with that. They're possessed. So now, what's gonna exorcism them? The power of love, the power of nourishment. And yes, like our ancestors, the ones who made change, the ones who got crucified, the ones who got burned, the ones who get, all these bad things happened to them in the Inquisition. They didn't die in vain because they were a force that they were going against this proving. And here we are now in the 21st century. It's our turn. And we don't have to fight. We just have to show that love, this divine mother, will not be defeated because it loves all the children. You can be cruel to it, but it will continue going on.
So the most powerful representation of the divine mother, you would say, is having this immense love for all.
Yes. It's like when you have children, some may go off to darkness, some may go to light, but you love them the same way. They're all your children. And one day, one child will come back home.
Absolutely. Yes. I was working with a woman, and her son was going through drug addiction, and she always had the door open for him. And people would tell her, why don't you teach him with tough love? Why don't you, throw him out on the street? And she said, no, the world will do that to him.
Yeah.
I'm going to have the door open for unconditional love whenever he's ready. And he did recover, and he did heal. And I think it's precisely that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through divine love and through the divine feminine, and just like you were healed too,
Yes.
right? You were still loved through whatever the negative things were that were happening.
Yes, because that story you just mentioned is my story too.
Yeah.
My father and my mother let me be. And they told me things, they gave me advice. And when I was in the midst of hell, when I was getting, abuse or suffering and all that things, I heard their voice clearly. I fought them, but when I was in that point and they were not there, I heard them, their love. So I went back home and asked for help. And my father told me, welcome back home many times. He was patient with me. But if I didn't have gone through that and he had not given me that love, I would not be here right now. And now I'm talking about an author or a spiritual leader. I'm talking about being the love of my life and still being alive, enjoying every moment that I have. So it comes a moment you have golden time, and your presence will remind everybody of this essence.
So this is such a beautiful example, right? That you had, instead of having the domestication voices in your head, when you finally wanted to get better, when you finally were tired of that path that you were on, you had that voice of love inside because your father told you the door's always open. And I think that's a perfect example of having the door always open for ourselves, right?
Yes.
And I think you always talk about is not rejecting yourself, right? I'd love to talk with you about meditation, because in this day and age, so many people are using meditation, and it's almost like the only little piece of time that they have to find peace in their life. And, I hear people say, oh, I did all my meditation, but then I went out to my day and this person made me upset, and they lost their whole peace that they created during the meditation that morning. And when you were in India, you really did like many hours of training of meditation in different situations to really master your concentration, your mind, your peacefulness. And you became kind of like very obsessed with the meditation because, of course, it feels so good, right? And you had an interesting moment at one point in time with your dad about meditation.
Yes, it was very interesting. You took me back when I was in India. I spent a few months living there, and my stepmother, Mama Gaya, my teacher too, she had a house, and in that house, that's where we all went and meditated there. And next door, there were construction. in that time. And over there is 24/7, the hammering. So we were meditating to that. I learned how to meditate through the noise. And, for me, being in the concrete or the marble or the dirt, it didn't matter. The thing is that when you sit there, you don't move. You go through all the uncomfortableness, your bum hurting, your the flies in your face and the uncomfortableness in your neck, and you want to move, but in that moment you just have to breathe. Anyways, I dove into that, so nothing could really break my attention. And when I got back home, I used to like lock myself in the room, burn the incense, and just meditated, lock myself for hours. And because of my past history, my parents were like, "What is he doing in that room? Is he using again or whatever?" And burn incense. So what is he burning? So one day my dad came knocking on the door when I was meditating, and he asked me, "Jose, what are you doing? Open the door." I opened it. "What are you doing?" I'm going, "I'm learning how to transcend." And he goes, "You're not learning how to transcend. You're abusing meditation." And I took it personal. I reacted. I lost my patience. I lost my calmness. How can you say that? And I see it like this, I see like that, all these things are happening, the uncomfortable. Yes, you have discipline, but you believe that you're an introvert. You get nervous to be out in life, that you close your eyes to not be present. Do you still consider me your teacher? Yes, Father, because I made a pact with him that he's my father, yes, but I see him as a teacher, not as a father. And I still do that. Anyways, he said, "Now I want you to do this next training with me. You will do your mantra that you're saying. I don't need to know it. But I want you to meditate with your eyes open and walking and doing activities. Can you do that? Can you believe in yourself that you don't have to sit down, run away from the people, and just close your eyes? Can you meditate with your eyes open and do that?" "Yes, Father, I will try." "No, don't try. Do." Okay. So I'm eating, I'm walking in the flea market or in the movie theater, wherever I'm, he points to me and goes, "Yes." You know him with his eyebrow, like and then after a few months, he said, "Okay, you've done good. How does it feel?" "Well, it feels magical because you begin being present, but not only that, I begin noticing when I'm losing my cool, when I'm reacting, when I'm taking personal, when I want to, speak before I say. I'm not big, something like happens in life, and I have to go to my room and digest it. No, I begin confronting it while it's happening, and good. That's what I wanted. This is going to be for the rest of your life. It's going to become a lifestyle. Now tell me about that mantra. Well, it's Om Picha Yoga Traem Baka, Tata Yoga Traem Baka, Rakshita Rakshamam. And what does it mean? Well, it's the universal mantra. What does it mean? Well, it's this, it's that, it's that. I don't know that. Well, okay, good. Now I want you to do another lesson. Get your mala and repeat after me. If you have jealousy right now over Judy doing something, I want you to do this, because at that time I was doing something there. She was, anyways. He said, "Do this. I don't have time to be jealous. I don't have time to be jealous. I don't have time to be jealous. I don't have time to jealous." And anything that comes up, my son, just do it. Repeat afterwards. Don't let your ego get in the way. I don't have time to be self-important. I don't have time to feel so. I don't have time to be a victim. And it went on and on and on, but I began doing it. And it's not because now you're saying words that you don't understand. You're saying words that mean something to you, that's in your program. And when you begin being aware of your program, you can change it. And he went on again and again and again. Then after a while, "How have you been doing?" And I gave him the thanks and said, "Okay, now you can go do that mantra you've always been doing, the Om Bicha Yoga one. But now you do it with respect. They're not running away from the mantra. You're not using the mantra to run away. I mean, you're not meditating in the room, to escape. Now you're really confronting, your emotions, your head, your thoughts, and everything. And when you begin being aware, you can transform. And that's the mastery of transformation. When you transform yourself from a way that you used to be, but you cannot do it by praying that someone's going to do it for you. Mama, Divine Mother always gave you everything. Now you just have to do it yourself. I give you all the teachings, all the lessons. Now you have to apply them yourself. And this is when the moment of when he had the heart attack, he was in a 9-week coma. And before he went on a 9-week coma, he said, I really want you to be skeptical of everybody's, suffering, because they're going to tell you that it's your fault or this or this, that. No, they will say things that they do not mean. And in that moment, that happened. People were mad at me because what he just wanted me to do is just be happy. And that's the best way I could repay him. Just take care of my child, he said. And I don't have to know, but you will know. But I was doing it, but other people didn't have to talk with him. So I felt alone. I felt alone. I was alone. The only other person was, Mama Gaya and Doña Barbara, my stepmothers. And but other than that, I was alone. So what did I do? I went to his closet. I put out a tape, and I saw a bunch of those tapes is the angel training courses that he said when he was a few months before, that he tried to teach angel training, but everybody wanted baby steps. He felt like he was talking to a wall. So I said, if I'm going to honor him, I'm going to learn this. So I began learning it. I began hearing it. And that's why I have an accent, because I learned his English, and that's how I speak it now. But anyways, I don't know how I got myself into it. I booked one place to speak, and I spoke there, and I booked myself to go to Teotihuacan, and I went there, and then all of a sudden I said, I'm ready to not teach, share angel training. And then I began sharing. So my father came out of the coma, learned how to walk, learned how to speak, learned how to be himself. It was the teachings in action. And then when he had clear conscience, he said to me, what have you been doing with your life? Well, I've been sharing angel training. He said, oh, he was skeptical, but he was learning to listen. So he went to the Encenitas, 1 street away from the Yogananda Center. And he said, people are putting attention. What are you doing differently? Well, I just put the whole Toltec teachings in a table. It's not a 1-year commitment. People can come and go, but they're going to take whatever's in the table. And it's beautiful because we have all these books in the table, just like that. And they're going to take whatever they want. It's not for me to teach them. It's for them to have the civilization that they're the one, because angel means messenger. So we're training the messenger. So we're training ourselves. Well, this happened for 7 years, hermana. And it's beautiful because on Sunday and on Saturday I did it. And Saturday my father came. And on Sunday I had the blessing that my grandmother came. So it was 3 generations sharing Toltec wisdom in one weekend. And the publicist found out about these teachings. She sent Karen, one of her assistants, to see over the thing. She started writing it. And then Jenna said, no, I want to do this. This is the 5th agreement. And this is how the 5th agreement came about. I never dreamt about writing a book. And, honestly, I still don't sit down and write books. I channel. I open my mouth and begin doing it. And the publishers get everything that I say. They edit it, because it takes a whole team to make a book. It's not just one person. It's like a bunch of persons to edit it, to correct it. And then they pass it back to me. And I say, it's a collectiveness, because, I can understand something and share to somebody, but the publisher know how that it can go to many different people. And, I have no ego about that. Many people, they hide that, but, this is the way that I do things. Anyways, the 5th agreement came about. I never dreamt about teaching with my elders, my teachers. I just wanted to change my life. I never dreamed about writing books. It just came by me changing my life. And here's a magical thing about when we begin changing our life and letting the dream behind, we begin living them, our dreams.
That's such a beautiful story. And, we haven't even actually said your dad's name or the name of his first book, because we assume everybody knows. But it's a beautiful story. And I love that you guys, really have maintained your family unit. In a sense, you've made this a family affair. You've brought the teachings, as a family, each your own way and differently. But for those of you who don't know, Josiah's father is Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the 4 agreements. And then this is the 5th agreement that he's talking about. And he's also written a whole lot of other books. I only have some of them here, actually. The Medicine Bag and The Wisdom of the Shamans, which is amazing. And then of course there's all of the teachings that you've done all over the world. And it's always just so powerful and authentic because you come with all of your love
Oh, yes, sister.
to yeah.
And I want to share something, this other book,
Oh yeah, I didn't
this
get
this
that one.
one, this one's very special to me because the first book that came out, it was this one, The Fifth Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So in The Fifth Agreement, I had many people judging me, many teachers, many students judging me. Like, how do you get that awareness? How, like, the son of Miguel, just put your name there. But they didn't understand the world that I came from because, I don't gossip about it back then. But people were gossiping about me. People were putting trash, he was a drug addict or these things. And, it really hurt coming from where it was hurting. So one day, this is the magic of my ex-wife, my second wife, Tammy Hutman. She's an angel. She's a psychologist. And she stopped doing that and became an artist. But she saw, you have something trapped, Jose. All of those things are affecting you because you haven't dealt with it. It's still in the closet. It's time to you to do it. And because she saw how it was affecting me, and she was kind of, seeing how is this possible? Teachers are, attacking other people for personal importance, not knowing where he comes from. Because of course, I share my life with her. She's my wife. In that, I wanted to be honest about everything. So, anyways, one day I got invited to a big seminar where all the spiritual, lead speakers come, and I was about to talk about the Fifth Agreement. And in that conference, for 2 hours, I didn't speak at all about the Fifth Agreement or the Four Agreements. I spoke about my dark past, about my life, about my drug addiction, about the abuse that I got in all those dreams, about how I lost myself and raised myself, and how India. I told my whole journey until the Fifth Agreement, like everything. And then I said, if I don't judge myself, who's going to judge me? If they're going to gossip about me, let me gossip about myself. What's going to happen now? But here's the magical part. When I got down that stage, it was an act of power because I just like look at my own Mara, just like Siddhartha seeing Mara. I just saw my own self, and I was, what else are you going to use against me? And somebody came and talked to me and said, Jose, I always put people like you, like your father and other teachers in a pedestal that somewhere I cannot reach. But you sharing your story so humbly, so burnable, it gives me an opportunity that I can change too. And this is why my good friend Aranos is, one of my special books because it's a revelation of how I went against the love of my life. And
Yeah.
and the
I love this book.
oh, thank you, sister. And one of the things about the rattlesnake is that when it's young, it cannot control its poison. But when it matures, it knows how to control its poison. And I'm a mature rattlesnake now. Doesn't mean that I don't have poison. Doesn't mean I don't take things personal. I just control my poison, just like Lord Shiva has the poison but doesn't swallow. Just like Siddhartha, the arrows are thrown, it turns them into roses. And like I said to my father, Father, is it strange that I like to be judged sometimes? And he smiled like you just did. And he says, why? It's because when they do it, yeah, of course I feel it personal, but then I feel it's something that I can work on. And I write another chapter for a book. I write a story. I transform the arrows into roses because humanity is in pain. Like he told me, when people are saying mean things, they're asking for help. And I listened without taking them personal, and I create medicine. Don't have to go to the jungle, get hallucinogenics or anything like that. Medicine is the intent that becomes a story, a power of words that we overcome the addiction of suffering. And the path that I was in, like my great grandfather was an undertaker, his son was a musician, military, his daughter was a curandera, faith healer, his son was a doctor, my father was a doctor, and I was a junkie. And that was my training to go against my body until I begin supporting my body. And at one point I begin healing my body. If I was going against my body, like the way I used to be 13 years ago, when you met me, remember, I would have had a heart attack. I was unhealthy because I was hiding. The moment that I begin letting go in living unlearning, I've transformed my physical body. I transformed my mind. It's like I died and I came back to life. So I wish I could speak to the 11-year-old Jose who went to that ceremony in the beginning when we started this conversation, but I can't. He's gone. But I can speak to everybody who's walked my path as well, because I'm not the only one. Because there's poison out there in this world that we get affected on, and we don't get affected by the same poison, we get affected by other poisons. But all of us as a collective dealing with our own poisons, there's others like us, and we're here, working for the same boss.
That's another example of that, being truthful, being authentic. And I think there's a rapper that even has a song about that, where he starts rapping, because when the rapping, they say bad things about each other.
Yes.
And so he started saying things about himself. He's like, now what?
Yes, and he in that movie 8 Mile, Eminem,
Yes.
he was a great teaching because it was in the midst that I was in, and when all these judgments started coming, he used to judge himself and he was quiet. One day he just felt empowered, and he just gossip about himself before they gossip about him. I do this, I do this, I do this, that. Now why are you gonna say what they don't know about me? It's because he wasn't judging himself anymore. And that mantra got in my head: if I don't judge myself, nobody else can judge me. And this is the beautiful thing about, spirituality is everywhere. Spirituality is not only in the temples, in the religious things, or in the spiritual things, it's in life. Because everywhere, some people don't have access to spirituality. They just do their best in their world. But the plant comes out of the concrete. Like the other day I saw Lady Gaga, and she's just a power horse, a dreamer, a manifester that, she was inspiring me so much that, and she has a song called I Just Want to Hold You and Die with a Smile. And when she was playing that in the concert, I wasn't singing it to somebody else. I was singing it to myself. I just want to hold you and die with a smile when that day comes. But if I'm, going to die with a smile, I will live with a smile too until that day comes. Because this is a whole point of our journey in spirituality, or looking for medicine to heal our life, to just enjoy the rest of it. So in the Toltec tradition, we're not promising anything for the afterlife because we believe that the mind goes in the afterlife. We're getting all the tools that we can give of wisdom so we can enjoy the rest of our time here with the love of our life.
Now.
There's no time to waste because nothing is promised.
Nothing, yeah.
We can go tomorrow. It's not about age. And if we judge ourselves, if we're living a nightmare, just stop. And I do believe in prophets, but the prophets who will prophetize their intent. Just like if there's an alcoholic out there who wants to stop drinking, you can prophetize 10 years from now, you're not going to drink. And you keep your word, you have your willpower, and in 10 years, you'll make that prophecy real. And then when you do the hardest thing in life, now what can you do? You can achieve your dreams. You can do anything you want. Just don't give up. Respect, dream, live. And this is what a dream master means for me. A dream master is not somebody who can control somebody else's dream and manipulate them. No, a dream master is the one who controls their own life and their own dream. Doesn't blame anybody. Just enjoy every moment.
And take life by the reins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have that strong will to keep going and walk through those fears.
Yes.
I can talk to you forever.
Me
Of
too.
that. But I want to talk about, there was a time when you realized that you had your beautiful altar and you were doing all these beautiful rituals and prayers at the altar, and you one day had a very deep realization, and this goes back into being the love of your life. What was that realization?
Well, that realization was so powerful because I used to have all these deities, all these masters alive, people that I met and people that I didn't meet in my altar. And one day I said to myself, if I can have all my faith into those people, Why cannot I take a picture of myself and put it in the altar? It's not blasphemy. It's that I listen to all my teachers, that I will respect them and have all that faith to myself. In that moment, I'm not living in blind faith. I'm not serving just one guru. I'm serving all life, all gurus, but especially the guru that I am, the love of my life, the one that Divine Mother gave me a mission to protect. Because at the end of the day, I am the tiger, and I'm the Divine Mother who rides the tiger. Shiva Shakti.
You're all of it. I think that's so important for people. Again, it seems like it all keeps going back to being the love of your life, to just really loving yourself over and over again, through all the fears, through all the errors, through the dream of the planet, and riding that tiger with that divinity, to into this world, right?
Yes.
While we get the opportunity.
And then we can see, everybody's belief, like the temples, the pyramids, the sacred buildings, they're an extension of what? Our mind, our home. And this is what, Brother Luis from Toltec Visions, says, I am home. He sings a beautiful song called I Am Home. I am home in the band. But because we're always home. We don't have to be in a temple or in a land. We're always home. Life can take things away from us. We're home.
We're always home.
Yes.
So if you could leave people with, just a few things that they can incorporate every day. And I know, it's hard when people say, oh, what's your one thing or your three things, when there's so many beautiful things, right, that we can share. But, three things that you think almost anyone can incorporate to start becoming the love of their life and stop the self-rejection and the self-judgment. That, I think that would be so beautiful.
Well, as an artist, is to follow their inspiration. Just to follow their inspiration. Don't be nervous or ashamed. Feel it, but just act and follow your inspiration, because you never know who you're going to inspire. Just like the people who inspire us, they don't know they're inspiring us. And another thing is to get a recording device and press record and speak your truth. Speak whatever is in your heart. And then listen to it. But especially listen to it when you're having hard times, when you're feeling doubt, when you're feeling, you're trapped. Put that recording device, push play, listen to the real you. Because who else can get you out of your funk, out of your stopping mind than you? And you'll remember. And the third one, it is look in the mirror. Like look in the mirror and, feel the love of your life. And saying, you'll always be loyal to me. It's time for me to be loyal to you. And when you get that concept, it's about not learning. It's about unlearning what takes your inspiration away. And every day, it's the same act. You live to serve. And I will add one more prayer that I do every day when I wake up. I say, may life protect me from myself. Here I go in another day.
I'm going to have to ask you to expand on that last prayer, because so that people know what that means.
Mm-hmm. May life protect me from myself, because whatever happens during the day, my wife could leave me. I could lose a job. I can get into a situation. I can get this, may I not use that to hurt myself. And I begin protecting myself from my own thinking mind. That is the fifth agreement, to be skeptical but learn to listen, but not be skeptical to the outside dream. Be skeptical to our own poison.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. Where can people find you, follow you, find out what you're up to, find out about Toltec Visions concerts or events and your own speaking engagements?
Well, you can find the main calendar on miguelruiz.com. But, the only social media page I'm in that you can really, my only official page is Don Jose Ruiz in Instagram. And I share my art, my mind, what I do in life. And especially, when I'm with my friends, Toltec Visions. And very soon we're going to have a web page, toltecvisions.com, and other Instagram page. We haven't got it there yet. But we're on our way. But in Don Jose Ruiz in Instagram and miguelruiz.com.
Wonderful. Well, there you have it, guys. It all comes down to love. It always does. And especially being the love of your life, like Josai, Don Jose Ruiz, has taught us today. So love yourself and be kind to everyone you come into contact with. Then we're all happy.